Prince Harry looked across the Atlantic and saw the royal family standing proudly on the Buckingham Palace balcony without him. The illusion shattered, not for the public, not for the palace, for Harry himself, because while the world was watching 1,000 years of royal tradition roll forward with military precision, Harry was sitting thousands of miles away trying desperately to convince everyone, including himself, that this was exactly where he wanted to be. But was it? Or was this entire weekend a painful reminder of everything he once had and everything he can never get back?
Harry leans forward and extends his hand in a classical gesture of, "Hey man, hey brother," but doing the predator shake, and there's no response from Lee.
While Harry was in Texas, the royal family was in London for one of the biggest royal traditions of the year. You have been kicked to the curb, Harry. You've been pushed to the back. You are no longer just irrelevant in the UK. You really are irrelevant here in America. You don't get celebrity status.
Harry's made his bed, and I think he's trying to show, well, look, I'm having my best life. I'm off to an NBA playoff game, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want to have the shackles of the royal family constricting what I do. So that, I'm sure, was part of the hidden message of seeing him strutting into the game last night.
So just sit yourself back in the 8th row, act like you are enjoying the game, and have people talking about you being there, because that's all you got here in America. You don't have the real deal. You got the fake perpetrating fraud of a Harry in America. Okay, you don't have the real deal.
Because remember, what remains so central to all of this is the threat, which is that if I don't get that, and he said this again, by the way, to the New York Post on page 6 this week, if I don't get that, then I'm not going to come with the children. I'll come on my own.
Everyone's watching what you do, and you're still acting like a spoiled brat. Get over yourself.
The images were brutal, absolutely brutal. Not because anyone attacked him, not because anyone publicly humiliated him, but because nobody had to. The contrast did all the damage on its own. While King Charles stood at the center of the monarchy, while Prince William and Catherine occupied their places in the future of the crown, while young George, Charlotte, and Louis waved from the balcony that generations before them had occupied, Harry was sitting inside a basketball arena looking like a man searching for something he could not find. And the public noticed. They always notice. What made this weekend different was that people were no longer debating whether Harry had made the right decision when he left royal life. They were asking a much harsher question. If freedom was the goal, then why did he look so unhappy?
Harry was spotted walking into Game 5 of the NBA Finals between New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs at the Frostbank Center in San Antonio, dressed casually in a polo shirt and baseball cap. And while this could have been framed as a simple sports outing, the timing is what has people talking. Because while Harry was in Texas, the royal family was in London for one of the biggest royal traditions of the year.
The answer may have been hiding in plain sight. Look at those two worlds side by side, London and Texas. One represented continuity, purpose, history, duty, family, legacy. The other represented what exactly? A celebrity appearance? A public relations exercise? A carefully staged photograph intended to send a message? Because if there was a message, it did not land the way many expected. The palace didn't have to say a single word. William didn't have to say a single word. Charles didn't have to say a single word. Their silence became the loudest statement of all. And suddenly a question began hanging over the entire weekend. Was Harry really choosing America over the monarchy? Or had the monarchy already chosen life without Harry?
What do you think King Charles and his son William will make of Harry's very public trip, his visit to a Knicks game, a sports stadium, on this venerated occasion? Because the Sussexes don't do anything by accident, do they? It's all messaging, as you say.
For years, headlines have repeated the same narrative. Harry walked away. Harry rejected royal duty. Harry chose another path. But what if that story is no longer the real story? Because there is a major difference between leaving something and being unable to return. That distinction changes everything. The audience sensed it immediately. They saw the pictures, they saw the body language, they saw the reality, and they began asking questions many royal commentators had carefully avoided asking before. Was Harry actually free, or was he trapped by the consequences of choices made years ago?
He is not part of the working royal image anymore. It is being solidified. It is being grounded every single day that he is absent from these major royal events.
That is where the Trooping the Color controversy becomes explosive, because despite all the headlines claiming Harry snubbed the event, critics pointed out something obvious. You cannot reject an invitation that never arrived. You cannot boycott a balcony you were never going to stand on. And you certainly cannot choose between two events when only one of them was available to you. That realization changed the entire mood surrounding Harry's appearance. Suddenly, the basketball game stopped looking like a choice. It started looking like a substitute.
Is recognizable, but he is not powerful in the same way. He is watched, but he is no longer needed. We could care less if the man showed up or not to watch an NBA game. Okay? So Harry is the one losing out big time. Big time.
Every year, Harry remains absent from major royal ceremonies. Another layer of separation hardens into permanent reality. Every photograph becomes evidence. Every missing appearance becomes confirmation. Every royal event moves the institution further forward without him. And that may be the most painful detail of all, because institutions survive. Monarchies survive. Families move forward. The machine keeps operating, whether one person is present or not. Harry once stood at the very center of that machine. Now he watches it from another continent, and the gap appears larger every year.
I think it would be rolling eyes. You know, here we see he wasn't right in the front row. I think he got a ticket. Look, he lives over there, and if you can get a ticket, you know, why not? But again, the sort of PR element of it is clearly showing, look, I'm living my best life.
Observers could not stop talking about the strange energy surrounding his appearance. The smiles seemed forced, the reactions looked delayed, the enthusiasm appeared rehearsed. People kept returning to the same conclusion. If Harry was trying to project happiness, then something was not connecting, because happiness usually looks effortless. This looked like work, very hard work. The harder someone tries to prove they are thriving, the more people begin wondering whether they actually are. And that suspicion followed Harry throughout the entire night.
Harry was attending the Knicks versus Spurs game, and most notably, he had his usual low energy, I really don't care about this look, as if he would have preferred to stay home playing Xbox, like the good old Afghanistan days.
Commentators began dissecting every expression, every glance, every movement, his posture, his eyes, his reactions. Nothing escaped attention. And what viewers believed they saw was not a confident prince enjoying life after royal duty. They saw exhaustion. They saw frustration. Some even saw loneliness. Whether fair or unfair, that became the dominant interpretation spreading across social media. Because perception matters, especially when perception becomes stronger than the official narrative. Then came another uncomfortable question. Did Harry fully understand what he was giving up when he left? At the time, many believed the answer was yes. He knew the costs. He accepted the consequences. He chose freedom. Simple, except years later, the situation no longer appears simple at all. Because freedom has a price. Status has a price. Purpose has a price. Identity has a price. And for the first time, critics began openly wondering whether Harry is now paying a bill he never expected to receive. A prince who once commanded global attention simply by entering a room now seemed to be fighting for relevance inside an arena filled with people more famous, more influential, and more important to the event than he was. That observation stung, because it wasn't coming from enemies. It was coming from ordinary viewers. And as the cameras continued rolling, another encounter was about to unfold, one involving a famous filmmaker, an awkward public exchange, and a moment that would ignite an entirely new controversy. And then came the moment that truly set the internet on fire. Because the seat, the distance from London, the empty symbolism of the weekend, all of that suddenly became secondary when cameras captured an interaction that looked uncomfortable, awkward, and impossible to ignore. Harry had arrived at the game hoping to be seen. Unfortunately for him, people started paying attention to the wrong thing. The cameras caught him greeting people nearby, moving through the usual celebrity routine, smiling, nodding, trying to appear appear relaxed. But then came Spike Lee, and within seconds, viewers sensed something was off. The body language looked strange. The timing felt strange. The reaction felt strange. Instead of the warm exchange people expected, there appeared to be tension, real tension. The kind that instantly makes audiences rewind clips and watch them over and over again searching for clues. Suddenly, social media exploded with theories. Was Spike Lee angry? Had something happened before the camera started rolling? Why did Harry appear uncomfortable? Why did he seem eager to move away from the conversation? The footage became a mini mystery of its own, and once the internet starts hunting for answers, it rarely stops. What made the speculation even worse was the story that resurfaced immediately afterward. Claims that Harry had once allegedly used Spike Lee's name online as an alias. The irony practically wrote itself. Here was a man who had spent years speaking publicly about online responsibility, digital accountability, and anonymous behavior on the internet. Critics immediately seized on the contradiction. Fairly or unfairly, they treated it as another example of the gap between public messaging and private behavior. And once that floodgate opened, everything else came rushing through. The audience was no longer talking about basketball. They were talking about Harry, his decisions, his contradictions, his public image, his future. Every appearance now seemed to generate the same uncomfortable conversation. Not what Harry was doing, what Harry was missing. Because while cameras followed him around an arena, another set of photographs was dominating headlines elsewhere. Images of Prince William spending time with Prince George. Images showing continuity, stability, family, legacy, the future king standing beside the future king. The symbolism was impossible to escape. Harry had built much of his modern identity around fatherhood, around being present, around giving his children experiences he believed he had lacked growing up. Yet here he was attending one of the biggest sporting events of the year alone. People noticed. They always notice. And the question followed him once again. Where were the children? Where was the family? Why did so many major appearances now seem to happen separately? The speculation intensified because absence creates a vacuum, and vacuums always get filled with theories. But beneath all of these debates sat an even larger controversy, one that threatened to overshadow everything else. Security, protection, status, power, the battle that refuses to disappear. According to critics, Harry's ongoing dispute regarding security arrangements has become far more than a practical disagreement. It has evolved into a symbol, a test, a struggle over what remains of his royal identity. Because security is not merely about protection. In royal circles, security represents importance. It signals status. It communicates position within the institution. And that is why every development in the dispute attracts enormous attention. The critics argue that Harry still wants recognition from the very system he publicly rejected. They argue he wants independence while keeping the privileges associated with royal life. They argue he wants freedom and significance at the same time. Whether those accusations are fair or not almost doesn't matter anymore. The perception has taken hold, and perceptions become reality in the court of public opinion. That is why the images from this weekend landed so hard. They appeared to tell a story all by themselves. A king continuing his duties, a future king preparing for his future, a royal family adapting and moving forward, and a prince who once stood at the center of it all searching for relevance somewhere far away from the institution that made him globally important in the first place. Perhaps that is the question haunting this entire story. Not whether Harry wanted freedom, he clearly did. Not whether he achieved freedom, he clearly did. The real question is whether freedom turned out to be what he imagined. Because years after leaving, the monarchy continues moving forward without missing a step. Trooping the Color continues. The balcony continues. The traditions continue. The public attention remains fixed on the crown. Meanwhile, Harry keeps appearing in headlines that feel increasingly disconnected from the role he once held. And that may be why this story resonates so deeply. A man who once insisted he was escaping a prison now appears to be chasing the importance that prison provided. A man who sought privacy continues generating public spectacle. A man who wanted distance from the institution remains locked in constant battles connected to it. And as the royal family marches steadily into the future, one uncomfortable question continues hanging over everything. Did Harry truly escape the monarchy? Or is he still fighting to prove that leaving it was the right decision? Because the longer that question remains unanswered, the louder it becomes.